Story. Adamas. Episode 3 starts with Hai-Soo in a bathtub thinking back to her conversation with Woo-Sin and exclaiming that he's totally crazy. After a dramatic title card, Woo-Sin paces in his living room and thinks back to Hai-Soo's claim that she wasn't the one who invited him to the house. In the meantime, Tae-sung gets there and asks him to leave the house. Well, he threatens him. Just then, Woo-Sin starts to choke and falls to the ground, unable to breathe. A shocked Tae-sung rushes to the pills on a nearby desk, but when he turns around with the box with vitamin K tablets, Woo-Sin looks fit and fine, exclaiming how Tae-sung knows exactly what to give someone who has been fed rat poison. Obviously, Tae-sung is pretty annoyed with him, but Woo-Sin tells him that just because he chose to save him, he knows that his foe won't go that far. Tae-sung reiterates that Woo-Sin is not his target, and thus he doesn't want to harm him. When questioned who his target is, Tae-sung menacingly mumbles that she should be there by now. Woo-Sin realizes that his brother is in danger. At Soo-hyeon's, a mysterious woman breaks into his house. At first unable to figure out whom, he realizes that it's Seo-hee, who is sobbing and blaming herself for taking Soo-hyeon to them because now, her parents are dead. Confused, he asks her whether Won-jong and his wife were her parents. It's a heartbreaking revelation that no one probably saw coming. In a flashback, we see Seo-hee reach home and find his mother dead on the floor and her father's body underneath their building, having seemingly jumped from their balcony. A sympathetic Soo-hyeon drives her away while someone keeps watching from the shadows. At Haesong, Tae-sung reminds Woo-Sin that although they haven't done anything to his brother just yet, there are consequences to threatening a police officer. Meanwhile, Soo-hyeon is trying to make Seo-hee see sense as she insists on handling this on her own. He asks her whether she, too, thinks that this isn't a simple suicide and that they should work together to figure out what's going on. A tearful Seo-hee mentions that she doesn't trust anyone right now, and Soo-hyeon mentions that this is more reason to stick through this together. While Woo-Sin and Tae-sung continue to threaten each other, Woo-Sin mentions that he has someone on the inside who is willing to help him. Tae-sung asks him whether they will help him steal the Adamas. Woo-Sin says no, but they will help him with someone else. The next day, in Adamas episode 3, Ms. Kwon cannot get over her annoyance with what happened the last day. However, the mention of Chairman Kwon perks her up. On the other hand, Hai-Soo gets a note from Woo-Sin and immediately goes up to him to talk. He asks her to help him. No, not to steal the Adamas, but he wants her to tell him who committed the murder 22 years ago. Annoyed, she tears up the note and asks him to threaten her properly next time before walking off. Meanwhile, the chairman tries to win Ms. Kwon's trust over with his sweet talking. It works, but before they can finish their weirdly flirty conversation, Hai-Soo comes in with something to tell him. Back at home, Soo-hyeon goes through the evidence from Won-jong's apartment since he is convinced that it cannot be a suicide. At the same time, team leader Lee realizes that he might have poked a sleeping bear. The consequences are not going to be good. Woo-Sin, on the other hand, mentions how Hai-Soo is going to regret her decision. Just then, Ms. Kwon barges in and gloats to him that Hai-Soo and the chairman are going on a trip together and that Woo-Sin's stay is going to be shorter than they anticipated. As he goes off to meet Hai-Soo, Tae-sung takes him away and tells him how his every move is being kept an eye on in Haesong. He then asks Woo-Sin whether he suspects Chairman Kwon to be the murderer and mentions that the statute of limitations has run out for his father's case. However, Woo-Sin mentions that since the chairman was outside for some time, he still has 18 years to catch the killer. Plus, he needs to figure out the connection between Chong-won and Chairman Kwon. The entire case stands on this one vital information. Woo-Sin asks for Tae-sung's help, but he turns him down and asks him to get proof of his wild accusations, otherwise, he will murder his brother. Soo-hyeon, on the other hand, promises to look into Seo-hee's parents' deaths even if it puts his life at risk. Moved, Seo-hee mentions that she saw the person who murdered his father. In a flashback, a tiny Hae-si sees a man carrying some sort of a bat and wearing a bloody shirt walk down Soo Hyeon's father's home. Woo Sin catches up to Hae-soo before they all jet off and asks her to tell him the truth. After much back and forth, she tells him that her husband told her that the chairman killed someone with the Adamas and that Chong-won took the fall for him. Woo Sin mentions that she's been right all along and asks her to further help him identify who called him. In order to add to the pressure, he shows that he recorded their entire conversation and that she should start unpacking now. At the chairman's office, Chairman Kwon mentions that he will be returning a year later since Hae-soo has asked to stay for some time at their house in Venice. Thus, they are putting a halt on the memoir for the time being. There's not much for Woo Sin to say, and he comes back to his room, frustrated at a missed opportunity. That's when Dong Rim tells him that he saw the conversation between Kwon and Secretary Yoon and that there's something going on between Haesong and Wang Byung-chul. Byung-chul has apparently promised to provide the police with arms if he becomes president. Woo Sin, thinking on his feet, chooses to tell the chairman the truth so that he doesn't let them leave, and that's exactly what happens. She refuses to let them leave before the elections get over. Meanwhile, Soo Hyeon and Seo-hee discuss their next moves after she draws the perpetrator. As he goes to talk to someone who might know the man in the paper, Leader Lee's men tail him, which Hyuk Pil's tail reports back to work. At Haesong, Chairman Kwon's cancelled plans send Ms. Kwon into a frenzy and she destroys everything in Woo Sin's office, eventually finding the torn-up letter in his trash can. Unaware of this, Woo Sin talks about legalizing firearms with Tae Sung and learns that he's trying to get into Team A in order to bring the entire empire down. Woo Sin, furthermore, shares the audio recording of Hae-soo with Tae Sung, taking him off guard. Meanwhile, Soo Hyeon goes to meet Chong-won to show him the sketch. Chong-won tells him that he doesn't recognize him. When Soo Hyeon asks him whether he remembers him, he says that he's not sure. When Soo Hyeon mentions that he killed his father, realization dawns on him and he remembers that day 22 years ago. Anyway, he continues to deny knowing the truth, and angry Soo Hyeon presses him for more information because he knows that this person was his ally that night. Episode 3 ends here. Review. What a thrilling episode, filled with things to mull over. Of course, at 68 minutes, it'd be odd to not have things happening. However, in spite of being sort of slow-paced, Adamas throws in some curveballs that are absolutely thrilling to the point that they will make you think. Even though it gives you tons to think about, there's also the added problem that there is so much happening in the show that you don't know whether what you're thinking about is correct or not. More information is needed, but unfortunately, the more you know the worse the complications get. Check out Adamas on TVN and Disney+. For details, episode-wise synopsis, detailed reviews and explanations of your favorite Korean or other country series and movies, please tell us in comment section. Thanks for watching.